Chapter 12. The Cleanup Detail. Physical, Emotional, Mental, and Spiritual. Well, we are almost at our destination in this guidebook. We have defined Christ consciousness, and we have learned that it is our human destiny. We've discovered that seeing all as one is really all we need to do. And we've heard about the happiness and creativity it can bring. We have learned how to connect with our guidance and to the earth. But we haven't yet addressed the unpacking list mentioned in the preface. The unpacking list includes all parts of ourselves that are out of alignment with unity or Christ consciousness, and that capture us in our human perspectives. Congruence, spiritual integrity.
Spiritual integrity is one's alignment with the spiritual values that one holds in life. The unity of all in spirit and the separation in form is misleading. If the actions one takes are in alignment with the unity of all of life, one has spiritual integrity. In the spiritual world, there is no past, and no cleanup is required. At the human level, there is a past, and if there are parts of your past that you are dragging along with you, go ahead and clean them up. Know that whatever actions you take in alignment with this intention to clean up your past are multiplied 1,000 times over, and that is all.
We operate from different selves in different areas of our lives. We are not all one self that is working toward one goal, and our many I's are at different levels of evolution and willingness. In order to bring myself into spiritual integrity, I need to have my I's aligned. This is challenging, to say the least, because most of the I's are not particularly interested in the spiritual path or spiritual integrity, and don't wish to change. I have found that the I that I give voice to in any moment is the one that is strengthened. And so the spiritual path is one of not giving voice to the I's that would wish to be reactive or selfish or wounded by someone's actions, essentially overcoming, outwitting, and outweighting the many I's that keep me trapped and out of spiritual integrity. Finding and strengthening the voice of the self that is seeing all as one is the best tool for this difficult task. This alignment is important because when parts of our lives are in conflict, it affects our energy levels and vibrational offering. Pilgrimage to Conyers. This reminds me of a time when I had just started on the spiritual path. I saw an article in the New York Times about Conyers, a small town outside of Atlanta, Georgia, where people saw an apparition of Mary, and pilgrims were gathered there. When I saw the article and photograph, I knew I had to go there. I didn't know why. I just knew I had to go. It was way outside of my comfort zone. My ego did not want anything to do with being a pilgrim. But I bought a ticket to fly down to Atlanta in the morning and returning in the evening. I rented a car and started driving east to Conyers. I didn't know exactly where in the town I was going, but since it was a small town, I had faith that I would be able to find it. Once in the town, I asked directions of a man in a dry cleaning store. He didn't really know where it was, but he thought it was in that direction, pointing me down the road. And I drove and didn't see anything. I was becoming worried, as there were fewer buildings, and I said out loud to my guide, "Well, if you want me to find this place, you have got to help me find it." And at that point, I became aware of the car having turned onto a side road, and I was 50 yards down it by the time I realized what had just happened. The car had turned the corner and driven itself. It was as if I had disappeared for those moments. A short way down the road was a handwritten poster that said, "Pilgrim Parking." this was it. I spent the day there singing Spanish songs with the other pilgrims who were evidently devout Catholics. We gathered in front of a small house with a porch where the miracle was said to have occurred. Seeing me come and sit down on the grass among them, the other pilgrims gave me a sheet with the words they were singing and welcomed me in. There was a healing well that I gathered water from, following the steady stream of people walking there. I later returned home, empowered by having moved beyond my comfort zone in some mysterious and joyful way, and by the miracle of the guides' intervention. I share this story with you because I realized that my body, mind, and spirit could not remain in harmony if I didn't follow my spirit's command to make the trip. It was like there was no choice, and I was aware enough of wanting to be aligned that I was willing to do a very out-of-the-box thing, to lift myself up to a standard that my spirit was calling me to. In some ways, it was like a graduation to another level, or a test of sorts, that I recognized as such and met with the egoic surrender that was required. I stepped forward to meet it. My body and mind fell reluctantly in line with a demand from my spirit. Who is my master? To be congruent in body, mind, and spirit, or to have spiritual integrity, we need to be able to answer the following questions. Who is my master? Who or what am I in service to? What is my highest truth? Am I living that truth in all areas of my life? Are there parts of my life I need to bring into alignment with what I know to be true? You may wish to turn off this recording and take a moment to answer these questions. Physical. The following quote from Can Thought Change Matter refers to the health laws of body, mind, and spirit. When the pattern of thought is changed, the materialization of the pattern also changes. Obviously, then, to produce a right result in matter, the pattern must be right. The bodies of some people never seem to change or show age. Why? Because they keep the pattern right by following the health laws of body, mind, and soul. Others change considerably because they disregard these laws. The pattern in the mind changes or deteriorates, and the life force or power of God flowing through that pattern changes the body or the materialization in matter." End quote. We create health for ourselves when we focus upon the perfection inherent within our bodies and support it with good food, exercise, clean water, fresh air, and all the other things that help us to be in vibrant health. Jesus offers another ingredient for health. Jesus, what supports Christ consciousness at the level of the physical body?
When one is in peak physical condition, one is in alignment with nature's dictates. Nature is a perfect example for the human in search of health and healing. Nature is never still, always in motion, and always adjusting to the seasons, the cycles, and the phases of the moon. There is never one day quite like the one before it or the one after it. This variability is nature's strength and her gift to the human on earth. When one truly knows and observes the land of her birth that she grows up on and lives on through her days, a relationship comes into being that is like friendship. She knows her trees like friends, and she knows where the different herbs grow, when the berries are in season to pick, and what animals will be where at any season and at any time of the day. This intimacy with the earth brings true health and vitality to a human being.
Peak conditioning is a bit daunting. Not since playing lacrosse in school have I been in peak condition. But remembering that Christ consciousness is already within me, I can work toward peak conditioning, knowing that I can also call on the strength of the One as I need it. I have noticed that when I do my morning exercises, the 5 Tibetans, a series of exercises that have been called the fountain of youth for their ability to energize the body, from within the perspective of seeing all as one, that the exercises become much easier because I become so much more. I become the whole room moving my body instead of just my human form moving the body. The earth is our outer body. Ask yourself, am I caring for my body well enough? In Christ consciousness, our definition of our body changes. The guides say, the earth is simply the outer body of you who live upon her. Treat her with love. Allow her to feed you, clothe you, and to sustain your life. Honor her with your gratitude, your gifts for her gifts. Ask yourself, am I caring for the earth, my greater body, too? The healing bed. Jesus' statement that intimacy with the earth brings true health and vitality is something I discovered firsthand. I had just returned from a transformative 2 weeks in Hawaii with Kahu Abraham Kauai. I was in a pretty high energy state. I lay down on the lawn to look at the stars, and after a while I got a download. My awareness instantly accessed a complete package of information. The downloaded information was for the healing bed, a bed dug 18 inches into the earth that I was to lie in for 3 hours a day. I rushed inside and wrote it all down. Several days later, I carefully selected a location, built a wood frame to make the sides stable, and dug a hole that deep to lie in. Yes, it did look very much like a grave, and thankfully the neighbors couldn't see the spot I chose. I really did lie in it for 3 hours each day for several days that first week, and then, though not usually for 3 hours at a time, I consistently lay in it each day for several months after that. I found that I felt really safe and that I could relax at a whole new level. The healing bed gave me a totally different feeling from lying on top of the ground. As I used it over time, I developed cellular awareness. I could feel each cell in my body. I was calmer and more in tune with what my body needed in the way of food and movement. I had to figure out a new way of eating because I craved fresh live foods and couldn't tolerate eating my usual diet. Emotional. Jesus, what supports Christ consciousness on the emotional level?
Emotions are the flag that blows in the wind of our centeredness. When we are calm, centered, and connected, our flag and its movement are within our control. Our emotions are authentic responses to actual conditions. They healthily release energy, make connections, and heal through radiant, unconditional love. The converse, emotions that come from a stressful, reactive, or pre-programmed state, are quite different in their effect. Not only do they harm, interfere, and disconnect, but also they are unhealthy for the organism and the earth. Now, how is one to find the harmony and balance to support healthy emotions? Begin with now. Are you breathing? How does your body feel right now? When we get caught up in external happenings and stimuli, we get tense and lose our connection with the core of our beings. The practice of a spiritual path is simply this: becoming simultaneously aware of our inner and outer states as we interact.
It's kind of interesting that to control our emotional states, we look at our bodies. Tension in the body comes when the outer world sucks us into exclusive focus on it, at the expense of the inner world. The spiritual path is to be aware of both. We cannot be present for our Christ selves when we are reactive, angry, overstimulated, or emotionally drained. Simply returning to your breath throughout the day can help you find peace and stillness, even if the world around you is in turmoil. You may have noticed that emotional reactivity is not the easiest thing to clean up. Give yourself some margin for setbacks here. I have had some really strong backlash from my ego. I've felt like the monster from the Black Lagoon has attached itself to my chest and covered me with gray slime. However, the amazing thing that I am realizing is that I can still choose to act from the vision of oneness, even if I feel the ego's attachment to me. It's not easy, and I can't yet do it every time. But I'm not held hostage in the same way I used to be. There is a place for all emotions in our world, and we needn't judge ourselves for having them. In fact, accepting that we do have them makes it easier to see all as one, a task that is difficult when we just want to include the good parts of ourselves and leave all other parts out. When we realize the emotions we feel are part of the human condition, they can become less personal. You needn't judge yourself or draw conclusions by their presence in your life. They come and they go, and you can say with a yawn, "Ho-hum, there you are again." And as we remain centered and watch our breath, it gets easier to observe emotions from the impersonal perspective of unity consciousness, which can transform them. It's like their volume is turned down, loosening their grip on our lives. I remember reading the definition of a spiritual master somewhere. A master is one who leaves no word unsaid, and no misunderstanding to dangle until next time. Make a practice of leaving a clean emotional trail as you move through your days, and the rest will take care of itself. One way to check your trail is to ask yourself, if I die now, am I at peace in all of my relationships? Love's many faces. It doesn't seem right to move on from this section on emotions without touching on love, the most powerful of all human emotions and the reflection of divine love. Jesus, please help me to understand the emotion of love. Can you speak about love and its many faces?
Yes, dear one. It is with grace and joy that this question alights in my today, for there is much misunderstanding about love and its role and ruses. For example, the way to love is a many-fingered path, for there are ways to embrace love that are far from what we would think looks like love. There are loves that have an almost masochistic flavor, for they hold an individual to a deep internal path of self-revelation and inquiry. What love's grace offers most is light, joy, and understanding, that quickening of the heart, that ease in the being. Love dwells in this face most divinely. One can know love by the outcome of its action. For example, when love is hard and demanding, yet the outcome is greater order, alignment, and the ability to stand in truth, then this is love. When love looks like it doesn't care and is aloof, this too can manifest eagerness and willingness that all the standing and whipping in the world couldn't elicit. When love is understanding and kind, the other being is opened and vulnerable and feels like he can go on, do more, and be more just through its kind touch. The faces of love are limitless, and in the embodiment of the Christ consciousness, this is an excellent query, for the limitation of love is the limiting of life as well. If your only response is of kindness and caring, then you limit and see only a fraction of love's possibility. In the old days, the demand to defend yourself, your town, or your country was an act of love as well, for saving and protecting life and life forms could not have happened otherwise. The other life forms that would take over your land and your ways of living would cut short your chance to love. So this isn't an invitation to do what you please and call it love. It is an invitation to see through the action you take to its reception in the world, in the other. See what it creates in its immediacy and down the road, and then you can decide if it is true love. Only then can you be sure of your gift or your curse to another. So the thinking through of love's action to its landing in the heart, mind, and soul of another is an important way to determine its efficacy and thus its worthiness for someone manifesting Christ consciousness. As God speaks and acts and loves through you, only surety and confidence come. As you love in the way of discipline and hardness, you will feel confident, for you will hold the soft edge to that discipline that lets through the love that is fragile and kind into the other's heart. The one you love will sense your caring, your concern, and your wish for the highest outcome in her life. This, too, is possible in your relations with yourself. When you love yourself, through applying discipline to your actions, you create great possibilities in your life. Think of those things that you know are good for you, but that you find hard to do and continue day after day. Those are love in action. These are God's loving presence in your life, your initiation to love through the one and only being that all are. Your willingness and awareness that this thing that has been hard is in truth love can change everything about it. So this has answered your question, we trust.
Yes, thank you. That was eloquent. This is a useful guide as a parent. It's reassuring to know that love can be so many things and still be love. Graceful, hard, demanding, aloof, understanding, or kind. The bottom line is the outcome of love's action. Ease, order, ability to stand in truth, alignment, eagerness, willingness, openness, vulnerability, the ability to keep going or do more and be more. Mental. Jesus, what supports Christ conscious mentally?
The mind is a great resource, for without it there is no possibility for creation. The mind, however, is man's deepest fault as well, for it is untrained and difficult to direct at will. So the trick is to watch the mind, to watch the actions the mind chooses, and get cleverer than it is. Find its niches of exposure, where it is vulnerable to direction, and take advantage in those places. For example, when a person is ill at ease and observes the mind and its dance of reasons for being ill at ease, there is an opening. When a person sees the mind in a new state, she has an opening. These openings are critical to the observer and must be utilized repeatedly and consistently to untangle the fiendish mind's workings. Your mind would have you at its beck and call, but the path homeward is that you are the master and not the servant of your mind. Patterns of thought are what you must observe. Now, once these patterns have been seen in the light of day, and you have found ways to catch them at their source, then the real opportunity exists to forge new pathways in the brain to higher ways of being on the earth. By higher, we mean states in which there are more possibilities, more choices for your actions. So once you see all the choices possible, you have attained mastery. Ask yourself, could I love right now? Am I present right now? Could I offer myself right now? If you ever answer no to any of these questions, you must examine your placement in the continuum of all that is, and see that there is more work to be done. In all situations, all choices must be at your disposal. What this means as well is that your body is not determining or limiting either your choices or your emotions for that matter. They must all be within your control and direction. Full mastery of the self is required for the full embodiment of the Christ consciousness. Full mastery sounds quite daunting, quite difficult, but in truth, what this involves is not a discipline in the traditional sense, but a discipline in reverse of sorts, a discipline that does not create a rigid line of movement or focus, and that does not demand a certain way or outcome. The new discipline is holding at bay the patterns of behavior that demand a certain way of being to effect an end. For example, you enter a room filled with new people. Your old way of discipline is to do as you have been taught, to do what is socially appropriate in greeting and touching people as you feel it is right. In the new way, you might arrive in a room and allow your actions to be completely different every time you do so. Predictability is the hallmark of a being captured by convention and old thought patterns. Unconventionality and spontaneous action that is new and appropriate in its spontaneous assessment of the situation calls forth from you and all of those around you a new offering of how to be in a room together. This means that not only are the old rules, ways, and authority figures unnecessary, but that when you do these actions by rote and not by paying attention to the moment's truth, you feel a loss of energy. When this occurs, you will know you have made progress on the road to mastering a new way of being. Your mind's journey is the most challenging for some. The truth of it is that there is no one way, no right way. However, knowing the end goal of all choices in every moment will guide you in the way that is best suited to your journey. Not only will you find your way there, to the mastery of your mind, but also you will find others who will journey there with you if you are clear in your intention and in offering your permission to your guidance system to assist you to this goal.
So what Jesus is saying is that our minds are our most important tools, and they must be retrained. We must observe them to find the moments when our thoughts are changing. In these moments, we see our mind's habitual actions. Once we have discovered our habitual thoughts and do not automatically cede to them, we are then able to be authentic in every new moment. This gives us more choices. Meditation is a process that assists us in seeing our minds in action. Most of us don't realize the extent to which our minds whip us around through life. My mind is like an overactive monkey. At times it is here and there and back and forth. It does not stay with anything very long. This becomes obvious when sitting in meditation. Meditation has been a huge help to see this critter in action and realize how much wasted energy results from my overactive mind's condition. Meditation exercise. In meditation I sit and my mind rushes off with me. I am lost in thought until I realize it. Oh, and I come back to meditating. I sit in stillness for a nanosecond or two, sinking in a place of non-thought, until my mind whips me off onto another tangent without my noticing it. I am lost in different thoughts until I notice and return again to meditating. This goes on, over and over. The only thing that determines its effectiveness is how often I am able to catch myself and return to meditation, and my willingness to do it. It takes some effort to pull myself away from my mind's thoughts. When I eventually see the patterns of thought that my mind enjoys, they lose their power over me. When we stop believing our own thoughts, there is space in our minds for stillness. Meditating with a group can be a very powerful assistance because the coherent field of energy that the group creates, as it sits with a shared intention and focus, helps quiet the mind and create a greater ability to remain still. If you have tried meditation and found it tedious, you're right. You might try it again, with the realization that once you get over the resistance to sitting, meditation ends up feeling like food for the spirit, and you will wonder how you managed without it for so long. Stop here for a moment and meditate for 5 minutes. Sit on the floor on a cushion or on the front edge of a firm chair. Put your hands comfortably on your knees or thighs. Keeping your spine straight allows the energy to move freely up and down your spine. Gently close your eyes almost all the way. Breathe and observe your breath. Stop the recording now for 5 minutes, if you so choose. Did you experience difficulty in sitting? It may take more than 5 minutes to move beyond the resistance we have to being still. Sometimes it takes me 20 minutes to finally surrender to sitting and being. And sometimes I can't seem to surrender at all. Spiritual. Jesus, what supports Christ consciousness spiritually?
When one intends Christ consciousness, there is no way not to ultimately achieve it. The intention demonstrates a clear knowledge that this intention is the choice of the one in question. When individuals choose this goal as the overriding vision for life, on the level of the Spirit's journey, they give themselves, in the greater sense, the permission to be led there. This is the singular most effective step toward the embodiment of this consciousness that there is. Nothing in the way of trying this or that will offer what this intention will in the way of movement toward this goal. When the child of God says, "I wish to embody the God force on earth, that I may fully express the joyful ways of life here on this planet," there is rejoicing in the heavens, for there is much that the heavens receive from this child of God's intention on earth. The life force that makes you live is one that not only pours forth from our level to you, but it also returns to us out of an expansion of your thoughts, words, and deeds. Levels of energy not before manifested on earth create a great cycle of movement and creative force. Yes, force, the life force. When individual souls come into human bodies, they do so in order to make manifest the divinity on earth. A being who knows this consciously moves in this direction and actually offers himself as a conduit for this level of light, is fulfilling his intention of earthly embodiment. So when one says to oneself in a moment of quiet and focus, "My goal is to embody the Christ consciousness on earth," the heavens open and offer all the materials to assist this to happen in one's life. Can you picture a stream bed clogged with debris, old sticks, dead leaves, and such? When one offers oneself to the goal of Christ consciousness, there is an increase in the energy flow. The water gets faster and stronger, and much of the debris may be washed away. One in the Christ consciousness must offer a clear streambed, uncluttered with old, useless thoughts, patterns, ideas, or ways of being in the body. The increase in energy has a cleaning out effect in one's life. Be sure that what is cleaned out was meant to go, and that what remains is more open, clear, and able to hold more water, i.e., Christ's light. So there it is, the one step that is required to set in motion the goal of Christ consciousness. Have faith in your guidance team. They know what needs to go if you don't. They will find ways to access and remove it, and you will thank them later. All beings on earth will ultimately offer this as their goal. Those of you who offer now are in the first wave of people moving in this direction. You pave the way and have much support from the unseen levels. Know this and be strong in your commitment to move forward as you are guided to. As your instincts lead you, go.
Jesus refreshingly states that in setting our intention to embody our Christ selves, we cannot fail. In honestly choosing this as the vision for our lives, we give our guidance permission to lead us to people, places, situations, and practices that will make it happen. I had not realized that we bring joy to the non-physical world, which also benefits from our path to Christ consciousness. But we are a mechanism for growth, creativity, and expansion, and what we create naturally feeds the spiritual levels. This highlights for me the grand view of the One's great organism and its joyful movement to discovery and expansion. The life energy that pours from the divinity to the earth returns to the divinity as the engine of expansion, creating a great cycle of energy and creative life force. Through co-creation, more energy becomes available to us. So, if this sounds like a choice you are ready to make, then at a time when you are centered and internally still, light a candle or create a small ceremony to say to your greater self, "My goal is to embody the Christ consciousness." When you do this, the heavens will shift into action, and you will be assisted in situations that help you to clear up things in your life that don't support your goal. More energy will move through you and into your life. Thought patterns, old stories, ideas, and habits will be made visible for you to examine and release. This requires willingness on your part. It doesn't get done for you. Your spirit's evolution is intimately tied to your ability to stick to your intended path. Stick to your commitment to free yourself. Release your old ways to make room for the new. Jesus assures that whatever gets thrown out needed to go, so don't look back or second guess. In summary, the unpacking list and the cleanup detail include the parts of your past you are dragging along with you. As you release the old voices, the eyes that only know separation, limitation, and the story of the little me, you make room for your Christ self. You become spiritually integrated when you are aligned with the Spirit at all levels of your life's expression. Physically, we strive for peak condition, which is the result of following the health laws of body, mind, and soul, and keeping our patterns of thought clean. When we add intimacy with the earth to this, we have true health, vitality, and life. Emotionally, being aware of our breathing and bodies helps us remain calm, centered, and connected. This state is the perfect haven for the Christ self to shine forth. Mentally, we must see the mind's patterns to extricate ourselves from its fiendish hold on our lives. We have openings to do this when we observe the places where our minds change direction. At these moments, we have the opportunity to see what triggers our habitual thought patterns. When we no longer rigidly believe what we think, our minds become our servants instead of our masters. This then brings us the opportunity to have all choices in all situations. Spiritually, we simply need to state our intention to embody Christ consciousness and surrender to the process of transformation that follows. There are some difficult things to let go of as we unpack, but the things we leave behind become much less interesting when we see the unified world in front of us.